You are listening to the voice of the Frontline Protector here at the Private Officer Beat Radio. Every week you'll hear breaking news, topics of training, information for the industry of security, public safety, and law enforcement. So strap in, hang on, we're about to speed off in this episode of the Private Officer Beat Radio. Hello and welcome to this edition of the Private Officer Beat Radio. On this Monday morning, August the 23rd of 2021. I'm your host, Rick McCann, as we are quickly slipping into fall. Wow, can you believe it? This morning we're actually feeling a little bit of that coolness here in North Carolina, and so I'm sipping both my coffee and drinking a little bit of V8 juice as I'm trying to get a little bit more healthier, eating a few more veggies and fruits. Not my favorite. I'd rather be eating cake and ice cream, but they say as you get older you need to have more fruits and vegetables, so I've added those to my ice cream and cake menu. What's happening in the world today? We have a lot of things happening, a lot of news, a lot of things, items that we want to talk about, of course. But one of the coolest things that we are working on, one of the coolest projects, and if you are receiving our newsletters, our breaking news alerts, then you probably have seen this, or if you read our blog, news blog, or any of our websites, you've seen that we have had something on the back burner for more than 5 years. We talked about how to do it, how much time, effort, and money it would take to do it. And, well, honestly, we're not any richer for time. We don't have a bank of time to work on more projects because we're already beyond our capacity in all the things that we currently do. But we are going to begin a museum. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. I have wanted to do this for many years. We've talked about a physical museum. Where would we put it? We talked about Nashville. We talked about Atlanta. And we've also talked about a virtual museum. Many museums have done this, and it's worked quite well. There are now more than ever high-tech, creative methods of having online museums. And, you know, if you ever have gone to a website to look at an apartment, they have that 360 video option where you could do a complete walkthrough and 360 view just like if you were there. And that's how we're creating it. If you would like to be part of this very exciting project, we invite you to become a volunteer curator. And all that is if you locate any old pictures of security officers, badges, patches, uniforms, patrol vehicles, action pictures where security people are doing something from the 1800s all the way up until right now, we invite you to become a curator. Send those into helpdesk@privateofficer.com, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. You'll be compensated in other ways. You'll also receive recognition as a curator for that content that you have contributed. And I think this is going to be really a great and exciting addition to Private Officer International, to the security industry, and we are including the U.S. and Canada in this project. Now, we have curated more than 300 photos and pieces so far. We're also taking video and pictures of some of these items in the possession of individuals, and we will introduce those into the virtual museum as well. Now, this museum will be have history. We'll tell you, it'll have historical content. We'll tell you about companies, how they got their start. Many of the big companies that no longer exist. We'll also talk about new companies. And we'll have videos. We'll have audio lectures. This is going to be very interactive for the user, because they'll be able to click on and hear different information. They'll be able to watch videos just like if you were in a physical museum. We're extremely, extremely excited. We hope to get this online no later than the first quarter of 2022, just around the corner, just a few months away. We are working on it. We have been working on it behind the scenes for about a month now, and we are extremely, very, very happy. Like I said, if you have pictures of yourself 30 years ago in your uniform, send those as well. Helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Helpdesk@privateofficer.com. I don't know really what's happening. Every week we seem to have to talk more and more about the fatal shootings by security officers. Yes, security officers are also being murdered, but in the last 2 months we've had 21 fatal shootings, including several this week by security officers. When I come back from the first break, we're going to talk about this latest episode. I don't know what to say, but we need your input. Are there correlations between these shootings? Yes, there are. Are there specific types of businesses where they are occurring? Yes, there is. We want you to join the conversation, not only on this topic, but others. Twitter.com/private officer. Twitter.com/private officer. Or over on our Facebook page at facebook.com/private officer international. I know a lot of you no longer use social media, and I don't blame you. But as a business, we've got to communicate with our followers, our members, and others who are interested. And it's also a marketing tool. So maybe join us on Twitter, and don't have any other followers but POI. Twitter.com/private officer. Be sure to get our daily news blog at www.privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. That's www.privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. We update that every day, 7 days a week, even on the holidays. You'll never get any stale news. Everything is fresh. We keep it fresh. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Private Officer Beat Radio.
What a fantastic day.
What a fantastic day.
The water's like glass.
The water is like glass.
Don't forget the sodas.
Don't forget the life jackets.
Who wants the 8 and who wants the 15?
Who wants the inflatables?
What a great day.
To be on the water.
So glad you saw me go over.
That was so funny. When you went over and your life jacket inflated.
Never go out without a life jacket on again.
What a great day we had.
When it comes to wearing life jackets, make the right choice. You're in command. Boat responsibly. This message brought to you by the National Safe Boating Council and the U.S. Coast Guard.
A crisis, everybody. Now, most of you have seen me wearing my signature mask on a plane. I love wearing it when I fly. I tend to get my own row 99% of the time. It's simple. Just wear the mask and cough. Because who wants to sit next to this guy? I don't blame you. And I went from being the only one on a plane wearing a mask to now everybody is doing it. Out in public, the park, at the mall, at the post office, with their girlfriend, with their husband, with their husband's girlfriend. We need to help our doctors, our nurses, and our healthcare workers who are fighting COVID-19 head on. And we need to make sure they don't acquire the virus. These frontliners have been running out of personal protective equipment, PPE. People have asked me, Kayvon, are you down with PPE? Are you down with PPE? Are you down with PPE? I'm like, yeah, you know me. Yeah, you know me. The CDC has been forced to downgrade the need for N95 masks to surgical masks, now down to bandanas because of a lack of supplies. Does this seem like a good idea to you? Hi, I'm your doctor. I'm also here to rob your bank. Bandanas? Scarves? What kind of PPE is that? One more. This is one of the easiest ways you can be a hero. So if you're a healthcare provider in need, or if you have supplies you can donate, there are a lot of groups leading the effort. Start with the PPE Coalition. They're a great resource and they can get you pointed in the right direction. So there you have it. Be a hero, make a donation, and help a frontline healthcare professional. After all, their health right now is in your hands. Just while you're at it, wash those too. If you don't, you're disgusting. Yeah, you know me. Yeah, you know me. Yeah, you know me.
Why? Why take a chance? Why risk a mistake? Why say something? We all have reasons why we choose to ignore the things that give us pause, that seem out of place, that don't feel right. The word why can either paralyze us or empower us to stand up and protect what we love. So if you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my family.
I see safe for my friends.
I see safe so that they are safe. We see safe for each other.
I see safe because all of this matters.
We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies this community we're all a part of. So protect your everyday. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
All right, welcome back to this edition of the Private Officer Beat Radio. Remember, we can't do everything. We need you to be participants. We need you to be stakeholders. We need for you to be active. There are multiple ways that you can be active with Private Officer International. Right now we have openings on our committees, our Officer Recognition Committee, our Officer Down Committee. You can also be active in being a news partner, being a liaison in your area, keeping an eye on things that would be of interest to our membership and our readers. Let us know what's happening. A number of you already do that, and we're definitely appreciative of that. Contact help desk at privateofficer.com anytime, day or night. When you have questions, if you want to be involved, if you don't know what to do or how to participate, please be sure to contact us so that we can get you involved. I said at the top of the hour that we're quite concerned with what's happening here in the security industry. 21, now 22 people killed in less than 60 days by private security. But we've also had a substantial number of security officers who have been murdered this year, far ahead of last year. There's a whole bunch of reasons why this is happening. And we've been asked numerous times, is there anything that can be done? Is it just all about training? Is it about supervision? Is it about, putting security officers in a position similar to law enforcement, enforcing rules and regulations and law without equal training? And those are all definitely key reasons for what's happening across the board. When you think it's only happening in the big states or the big cities, then you see the headlines where small town security officers are getting involved in the same type of physical violence. And it's not just killings, murders. Security officers are assaulted and beaten regularly. Last year, we had a number of security officers physically kidnapped from their location and taken to a secondary location, assaulted, robbed, left for dead. We had a comment earlier last week that asked, where is this happening? Is this just at the nightclubs? Is this just maybe at the apartments? Well, we did a research. We checked all the way back to 2015. And between 2015 and 2021, 6 years, it's all the same old suspects. Most use of force by security officers and against security officers come from only 6 places: nightclubs, restaurants and strip clubs, apartment complexes or residential communities, convenience stores. We just had a shooting over the weekend. A security officer was shot in the head at a convenience store / gas station after trying to remove a disorderly customer. Shopping centers. Many security officers patrol shopping centers in not so good communities and in good communities. Grocery stores and outdoor events are all the same old suspects that we have seen throughout the years. The other issues and indicators to the problem is, yes, training. Security officers today need to be in classifications. Unarmed security should only be put into assignments that are low risk: office complexes, high-rise towers, lobbies, access control positions, manufacturing factories, business parks, places where people around and little chance, there's never going to be zero chance, but little chance of anything major from happening. And then when you move into those outdoor patrols, apartments, shopping centers, nightclubs, convenience stores, and the like, now you need that secondary certified officer with at least 80 hours, and we recommend 120 hours, but at least 80 hours of training in use of force, de-escalation, mental health emergencies, first aid, advanced first aid and CPR, responding to all sorts of calls for service, incidents, crimes in progress, and so forth, because in these locations, especially in the shopping centers, convenience stores, malls, apartments, everything in the world can happen there, just like they do in any other part of the town or the city. An apartment complex, a shopping center, a mall really is, in many cases, a town within a town. We talked in numerous radio shows about apartment complexes that I've had under contract where, they had one apartment complex had 8,000 people that lived in the complex. Today, it's not uncommon to be at a gated community or an apartment complex that has 2,000 to 3,000 people. Children, of course, is being counted. But some of the complexes that we've had under contract had inside the gated community convenience store, laundry mat, dry cleaners, and several other businesses. They had 5 swimming pools and clubhouses which were rented out frequently, which brought more people onto the property. We had major events. One apartment complex would regularly hold picnics and music events and so forth on the property, open to not only their residents, tenants, but also to the public. Whenever we're going to be involved in having to face the public face-to-face, having to deal with responding to different type of calls incidents, crimes in progress, so on and so forth. We need that more skilled, highly trained, multiple skill set officer. One size, we know it just doesn't fit all. As we continue to place people in these positions that have minimal training, minimal education, minimal qualifications, yes, we're going to see more and more security officers injured and killed, and more security officers fighting back instead of trying to de-escalate or use other less than lethal options. They are going to their firearm. Unfortunately, this past weekend in Los Angeles, a security officer who was only licensed to be an unarmed security officer, he had pepper spray. He got into a confrontation with a man who was later identified to be a homeless man known to be in the area who never had a problem. He was a day laborer, got into a conflict. The security officer went to his vehicle, retrieved a firearm, and as this homeless man was walking away with his hands in the air, this has been confirmed both through video and witnesses' statements, the security officer shot him twice, killing him, and now has been charged with murder in the first degree. Murder in the first degree. Well, why was it first degree? Why not second degree? Why not manslaughter? Why not self-defense? The key issue here is the security officer is on video going to his vehicle, and there are witness statements retrieving the firearm. That shows intent. You can say, well, the security officer was afraid. Well, he went to his vehicle. He could have gotten into his vehicle and drove away. He could have called 911 for police assistance, but he retrieved a firearm, then walked back to where the homeless man was leaving with his hands up and shot him literally in the back. Once in the back and once in the shoulder. So it's first-degree murder. It was contemplated. It was premeditated. He thought about doing it. That's why he retrieved his firearm. We are seeing a time like none other, with the lack of police, with the defund of police, with police not responding to various types of calls. I know that in some areas, if security calls about a intoxicated person or calls about a very minimal misdemeanor, they don't respond. In Atlanta, Georgia, one of the biggest cities in the country, if you call about a shoplifter, they do not respond if it is a misdemeanor type shoplifting. They will respond if there's been an assault. They will respond if there's a weapon involved. But they only respond to felony type theft calls. And this really has hurt the loss prevention industry. It causes them have to seek out warrants. It causes them to do more investigative work on their own, and it also causes their store to be larger targets for not only everyday shoplifting and theft, but also for the organized retail thefts, which are increasing everywhere. And we're going to see more and more and more and more of this. Now, not only are private security personnel having to go through this process and seeing all of these new issues coming up, but we know that across the board, schools, elementary, high schools, and colleges and universities are having these same issues. Hospital security, we talk to a number of them regularly, and they're reporting the same thing. Defiant people, a lack of law enforcement response, although it depends on the area. Some areas are still relatively very quick on responding, especially when a security officer needs assistance. But we're seeing that the attitude, the way that people are handling themselves now, much more violently, much more defiant, it's across the board. It doesn't matter if it's in a shopping mall, a convenience store, or high school. And thankfully, we don't have as many deaths as we could, because honestly, all hell is breaking loose, and this is really going back to the days of lawlessness, to the point where every man for themselves, and you have to be able to and be ready to defend yourself. And so with what's happening in our society, with what's happening in our laws, we need to train our people how to de-escalate and how to remove themselves when necessary from that situation before they do use physical force or deadly force, lethal force. There is no simple or easy answer for this, and there's not going to be any quick fix. This is going to be an ongoing situation. Thank goodness that things are getting to show some resolve. Some areas who had talked about defunding the police and cooperating with certain minorities, now that the crime has skyrocketed, murders are way up, robberies and so forth, now they are coming back around to understanding the need for more police. And even many communities are now asking for more police. They don't want to defund the police. They don't want a lack of police presence because they know what's going to happen and they can see what is currently happening. And so in our security industry, in our public safety and private police, we need that training. Whether the state mandates it, regulates it or not, we need it. It's for our own well-being, our own safety. Is there anything that you can suggest to make things better? Do you have a suggestion? Do you have an opinion? We want to hear about that. Go to our Facebook at facebook.com/Private Officer International. Go to Twitter, twitter.com/Private Officer. Send us an email, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. We're going to take another quick break. Coming right back. You are listening to the Private Officer Beat Radio. Hey everyone, you're listening to the voice of the Frontline Protector right here on the Private Officer Radio Network. Now don't go away because we are coming right back when we've got a whole lot more right here on the Private Officer Beat Radio. If you're not already receiving breaking news and our bi-weekly newsletter, Officer Down reports, and discount training news in your personal or business email, then go to our website right now at privateofficer.org. privateofficer.org. A Dropbox will come down. Just fill out your info, and you'll be the first, one of the first, for sure, to know about what's happening in the security industry. You'll know when a security officer is killed. You'll also get these great discounts on training and equipment and so much more. privateofficer.org. And as we're closing in on 600 episodes of the radio show, we'd like to invite you to comment. And if you'd like to be one of our sponsors, you can sponsor your business or your service. Contact us at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. We have an inclusive, all-inclusive program package, low marketing fees that includes all of our website, banner ads, radio spot ads, and so much more. Contact us at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. If you want to be a guest, you have a topic that you want to have heard here on the radio show, also contact us at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Speaking of sponsors, Body Armor USA, we've got what it takes to protect you. We have got body armor, protective clothing, stab-resistant vests, gloves, all sorts of protective wear. Body Armor USA, we have got what it takes to protect you, no doubt. got a lot of things happening at Private Officer. Remember that right now you can become a Private Officer International member for just $99. Go to our website at privateofficer.org. Save $70 on a lifetime membership right now. We also have a lot of summertime training discounts happening at POI and Armor College. Those are coming to an end as it is quickly becoming fall. I hate to say that because I love summer, but I love fall more. Here in the Carolinas and in the Virginia area, leaves are changing. Leaves are falling already. It's definitely going to be an early fall. We have a lot of information that we want to put out about our new virtual reality training that's coming to a city near you. We're going to be using the virtual reality headsets and then working after that with face-to-face reality training involving lights, sounds, stress, and many other factors. We will be bringing this early next year to a number of cities. Now, with COVID again popping up, and really there are some states with extreme COVID numbers and deaths, we're going to have to temper this training and other in-person events accordingly. We are monitoring nationwide, state to state to state, to see what is happening. I know in our areas those numbers have again increased substantially, and although there's no stay-at-home order or lockdown, it is being talked about. We will keep you updated and apprised as things continue, but we really are looking forward to bringing this virtual reality training and skill training face-to-face in cities across the country, but just stay apprised. The same goes true with the Private Officer Memorial Services, that we really, really want to get out there in person again. We skipped last year because of COVID, but again, this is all going to depend on what is happening with COVID, with the increased virus, even for those who have taken the vaccination. It can affect them as well, and we're just going to have to play it by ear and monitor it, because really no one really knows what's going to happen. So we'll do the best we can, and we'll keep you updated. Be sure to go to our website at armorcollege.org and take that discount training. Sign up for a course. We do have a brand new session 2 of the Command Staff College, happening the first day of class will be right after Labor Day. So if you are interested in taking that, it's open to all supervisors, frontline staff, managers, law enforcement, private entities. It is a 20-week, 146-hour course. You can't go wrong with the price, and you're definitely going to enjoy the training as well. One other thing that I do want to bring up before we head over to our news desk, but we want to remind you that, across the country, security officers, there's estimated to be 1.6 million. I'm sure that includes loss prevention as well. 1.6 million, more security personnel than law enforcement. We've known that forever. But there seems to be a disconnect, a true disconnect, and this is one of those areas that really concerns us and can really affect how we do our business, because, as a professional industry, and many people don't look at it that way, unfortunately, many people just don't look at it as a professional business or industry or job. But across the country, we are disconnected, and we need to unite. Forget the competition aspect. Forget about, he stole my contract. All of that is part of doing business of any type. But we need to unite, and that was one of the purposes of Private Officer International starting the association when we did. Reach out to fellow security personnel in your area and invite them not only to join POI, but to listen to our radio shows, follow our social media, understand what belonging to an organization like this can do, not only for them personally, but for their career. We need to not so much be a union, but we definitely need to be a brotherhood, an organization that can set goals and work together nationwide and internationally. To get more information, please contact us at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. We're going to take a quick break, coming back with a lot of news. Don't go away.
Without this woman, my father couldn't have had his hip replaced.
Without these people, I'd be dead.
This man helped my son through leukemia.
Do something amazing. Give blood.
I want to welcome you all back right here on the Private Officer Beat Radio on this Monday morning. I've got my coffee and my V8 juice. You can't get better than that. So I've got a pretty good day going. Literally just a few feet away, I've stepped over here to the news desk. We about 3,000 different sources of news feeds come through our office every day, 24/7. We have a very small staff that every day peruses the news relating to the security, public safety, law enforcement industry, as well as other things that's happening. If you want to read our daily news blog, you can see all of the fresh news that we post every day on our news blog. All that you have to do is go to www.privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. And if you'd like to receive real important, urgent, breaking news in your mailbox every day when news happens, officer down reports, and occasional training specials and opportunities that are put out through POI as well as Armor College, then go to our website at privateofficer.org. A box will drop down. Just input your name and email address, and anytime there's something of importance, really big time, or an officer down report, you'll get that email immediately in your mailbox from our help and news desk. I really applaud the people that work in my office and the people that keep things rolling. I know that I've often spoke about the importance of the news, but let me tell you this, guys and gals. When you work in a specific industry, the way to stay on top of what's happening in your field, and to educate yourself and to be aware of different situations. I remember a while back, a security officer emailed us and said, I'm so thankful for what you do with the news, because although it may not really seem that important to a lot of people, news is usually bad news. News is usually, something that we think of that's not really that important. We don't want to be tied up in politics and what's happening everywhere. But it actually is very, very important when you're in a specific profession, whether that's medical, fire service, law enforcement, security, plumbing, electrical. You want to stay on top of what's happening, what the latest deal is, what the latest technique is, what the latest training is, and also specifically what the dangers are across the country that you may not be aware of. And, a while back when fentanyl was really big, this security officer was involved in an incident where fentanyl was involved, but he was heads up because he had heard me talking about it on a previous radio show. And we've had the same scenario play out numerous times over the years where security officers and company owners and trainers, educators, have emailed us or contacted us and said, we use your information. We put the information out. We use it in the training. We use it in our weekly conversations with our troop and with our newsletters. And it's been very informative and it's been educational. And so, that gratitude goes a long way. And that's one of the reasons why we're still so big into the news. We have a lot of breaking news this week, by the way, and we hope that you have found the news to be educational, important, informative. Drop us a line. Let us know how we're doing. helpdesk@privateofficer.com. One of the things that I did not bring up yet on the radio show, it wasn't that I neglected or forgot about it, but we have had on the East Coast a hurricane over the weekend. But before that hurricane, several other storms, both in the Gulf Coast and the Atlantic, have come together to produce a large amount of rain, substantial amount of rain, in fact. And in North Carolina, along the mountains, along the beautiful greenways of North Carolina and across the Tennessee Ridge, we have lost more than 50 lives because of mudslides and floods. In rural Tennessee, west of Nashville, a place that I know very, very well, in Humphrey County, very rural, farm, agriculture, simple life, away from the big city between Memphis and Nashville. And unfortunately, because of floods, and when I say floods, I don't mean a few inches. I'm talking about feet of water. Large amount of water. A number of people died. 30 people died over the weekend. There's at least 30 more missing just from that rural area. Also in North Carolina, along the Blue Ridge Parkway, the Blue Ridge Mountains, again, between 25 and 30 people are dead. Dozens are still missing because of mudslides from the mountains caused by the heavy rains. We have not seen this type of flooding in the Tennessee area for quite some time. It's been about 12 years ago now that in Nashville, Tennessee, Cumberland River flowed over their banks and literally put Nashville, the booming tourist area downtown, as well as out in the eastern portion where Opryland Hotel and other retail malls and tourist areas are located, put them underwater. It took a long time to come back from that. And now we see again that this flooding has done so much damage, but more importantly, taken so many lives. We do not know how many security officers have been injured or even killed in these storms. We do know that in frequent storms, rainstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes, security officers are injured. Last year, during a similar situation in Tennessee, a security officer was killed beneath the weight of a building that collapsed during a tornado. A second security officer was also killed, again, in a tornado. And numerous storms like this that cause severe damage and loss of life, security officers are involved. So we are keeping track of it, and we are trying to determine if any security officers were injured or killed. And once we get that information, we will bring it back to you live today on this program or via an email. Also, be sure that you keep up to date with our social media posts. We are there regularly. Even if you are not a big social media believer, please go to Facebook and become a member. If you have no other friends but POI, that will be enough. Facebook.com/Private Officer International and Twitter.com/Private Officer. In the news right now, a Memphis, Tennessee security officer is fighting for his life after he was shot in the head on Saturday while trying to eject a customer who was unruly and disorderly from that location. During the fight, a security officer, there were 2 security officers involved, a security officer tried to taser and use it, and that's when he pulled out a handgun and shot the second security officer in the head, who is in grave condition as we speak. We have not checked in the last few hours, but we are trying to stay on top of that. The man has been identified as 56-year-old Daryl Tate, the suspect, charged with 1 count of attempted murder and 1 count of employing a firearm with intent to commit a felony. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out is that violence and the security industry have come to a head-on, almost like a train wreck, where in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, violence is everywhere, on every account, in every situation. As I said earlier, convenience stores are one of those, suspects in the top 6 areas where security officers are injured or they use force or they're killed. The Criminal Justice Research Center, which is located in Maryland, this past week came out with a very telling and interesting study. This research that is done regularly on various criminal justice issues, the Academy of Criminal Justice Sciences is their true name, located in Greenbelt, Maryland, just outside of the city limits of Washington, D.C. What they did is they looked at 911 calls just for 1 year. And they studied cities of over 1 million population and smaller cities under 80,000 residents. They tracked 4.3 million calls for 1 year, and then they went back and they took 2016, 2017, and they looked at various calls for service. That means when a person called 911, what the issue was. Now, according to this study, please listen to this. According to this study, mental health incidents only made up 1.3% of all 911 calls. So when the media, when the social justice people, when the crowds yell, mental health, he has a mental health issue, he has a mental health disorder, they don't need cops, they need the mental health professionals. I have news for you. Only 1.3% of all of the 4.1 million 911 calls had anything related to do with mental health illness. And of those calls, according to this study, of the 1.3% that supposedly involved mental health, less than 1% actually did involve mental health. And only, I get frustrated when I look at the media and I hear the media talking about this, that, and the other thing, and then everybody jumps on the bandwagon. The true fact is law enforcement uses any type of force in such a minute scale compared to the number of total 911 calls and calls for service in the U.S. that it's not even, it's trackable, but it's not even in comparison. Use of force percentage against the number of contacts with the public is small. The largest number of calls, according to the study, on 911 was traffic related, whether that was a traffic accident, a traffic complaint, a reckless driver, 16.8. And the second highest volume of 911 true calls was for disorder and disorderly conduct and people not behaving good. 16.2% was disorder calls and suspicion calls from individuals worried that a crime might be happening or was happening or a suspicious situation for a person, followed third, 12.8%. Calls for violent incidents, whether that be an aggravated assault, a person with a weapon, a person fighting, a person injuring another, was only 6.4% of 4.1 million 911 calls. It is important to understand that when we're reading social media posts, when we're reading things that come from the news, when we're listening to the voices, most of the information is speculation, assumption. They're projecting something without the true data and without the true facts. Read our post online at privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot. We've got the whole study right there. Sadly, we do have 3 security officer deaths to report from COVID. We know that all 3 of these security officers were active. In fact, one of them was married and refused to get the vaccine, even though his wife did. He was hospitalized, and within a week he was dead. A security officer in Cincinnati, Ohio, also died in the last 2 weeks from COVID. And a Washington, D.C. security officer died, 57 years old, and married. He had some issues catching his breath. He went to the hospital. He was admitted. He was unfortunately not vaccinated, and he died as well. Atlanta hit more than 100 homicides for 2021 already, which is a big deal. They surpassed their total homicides last year. Atlanta is a beautiful city located in the heart of the South, and yet it is a high crime area with a lot of murders. In other news, we have to tell you about in New York, a masked man wearing a ski mask fired into a Harry Potter store in Manhattan. This is really unbelievable. At 4:30 in the morning on 5th Avenue, and then yelled out at a security officer who happened to be patrolling that store, "Hey, how you like that? How you like that?" And the security officer was able to take cover and was not injured. The suspect fled and has not been arrested. It doesn't matter these days where you're patrolling. It doesn't matter what your beat is. It doesn't matter if you're in an office or a retail store. Violence against security, I'm telling you, we've been doing this for 18 years, almost 19, is at an all-time high. Brandywine, Maryland, a security officer was murdered there in the last year in his vehicle while on patrol. And now, just a few days ago, on Saturday, a armored truck security officer was shot during an attempted robbery of his truck. This happened at 1144 at a Costco store on Crane Highway, which is in PG County, Prince George County, Maryland, just over the D.C. line. But unfortunately, like I said, security officers, they are the target. Coming out of Overland Park, Kansas, the proprietor of Bullet Hole Indoor Range contacted us physically and said, "Hey, please get this message out." On Thursday, August the 19th, a security company was using the facility for firearms training when a security officer negligently discharged his weapon, hitting another security officer. The security officer has non-life-threatening but serious injuries, taken to the hospital, and is in good condition. Police are investigating, and that security officer who accidentally or negligently fired his gun could actually face felony charges. I've never had a business reach out to us like this to say, please get this message about safety across to your people. He follows us on Facebook, actually, and that's how he came to know about us. And we contacted him and said we will gladly do it. We've since posted it on all of our social media sites. And now I'm telling you, here on the radio. Tony Cannon Jr., a young security company owner in Omaha, Nebraska, is really starting to take off. He started in security at a young age, and now just 4 years later, he opened his own company called the One Security Solutions in Omaha. He's actually in a competition right now to win some money to help him to expand his business along with a number of other local security companies. So just, have good thoughts that he might win. Coming out of Kansas City, Missouri, security officers at the Oceans of Fun water park doing bag checks were very diligent in their work, and they found a large quantity of drugs in a bag of a male patron, meth, paraphernalia, and a large quantity of pills. Park security detained the man. Law enforcement arrived, and he was taken into custody. Just really, really, really good work. Coming out of West Des Moines, Iowa, a security company there lost a contract for the city because of some social media comments that the owner of the security company made about protesters last year. Unfortunately, the city voted to dismiss that contract with a 30-day notice because of the comments. There was a large uprising of city members, of residents, as well as people that were on the council, and they just voted to get rid of him. He does also have a number of contracts with the city of Des Moines and other businesses, and we will be tracking that. It just goes to show that really you are a public figure as a business person, and you really are limited as to what your thoughts are and what you can say publicly. I make it a point not to be too controversial. I try not to antagonize any group or person, especially not on social media. I understand that, as a law enforcement officer, as a firefighter, and a member of my community, as well as a larger community in the business, Private Officer International is an international company. We have business partners and members in a number of countries. We have quite a across the nation footprint, so we do have to be careful. A car break-in suspect began firing shots at a security officer. Again, this was Atlanta, Georgia, just this past week at 12th Street and Peachtree. Very busy area close to downtown. The security officer on foot patrol noticed a man breaking into a vehicle behind a restaurant. He went to approach the man, and shots were fired. The security officer was not injured. The suspect has fled. A security officer in Memphis, Tennessee. There are a number of hot spots, if you notice. Memphis, Nashville, Atlanta, Charlotte, and other cities, they seem to have a lot of action, and that's because they have a lot of security personnel. A man is charged with attempted murder. This is the second one that I've read about to you today, of a security officer after shooting up the security officer's vehicle at a Memphis apartment complex. According to police, the security officer was also sitting with his girlfriend on duty, not sure why that would be, when suddenly a man drove through the apartment complex and began shooting at the security officer's vehicle, and that's because there was a man who had been a victim of a drive-by shooting the previous night, discussing it with the security officer when the suspect drove through and just began to open fire on the vehicle of the security officer and the victim of the previous night. Police do have the man in custody. Octavian Scott has been charged with aggravated assault and attempted murder. See? Very violent, very violent. So Alabama, unfortunately, sometimes police officers do things they think for the right purpose, and it ends up to be the wrong purpose. Same thing with security officers. William Ben Darby, a former Huntsville police officer, has been convicted of murder for shooting and killing Jeff Parker, who was contemplating suicide and was holding a gun. Officer Darby at that time said he was protecting other officers when he fired the lethal shot, but unfortunately the court did not see it that way, and they sentenced him to 25 years plus life in prison. We've already told you about the virtual private security museum. You can become a curator. Simply send pictures of security uniforms, badges, patches, equipment, uniforms, old stuff from the 1800s all the way up to the current day. Send videos, information about companies that may no longer be in business. You will get recognition for being the curator of that. Also coming out of Albuquerque, New Mexico this past week, 3 officers were injured when they responded to a robbery in northeast Albuquerque. Police say all 3 are doing well and should recover just fine. We got a lot of breaking news. Be sure to go to our website at privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. When we come back, more information and a subject that we want to bring up in just a few minutes. You're listening to the Private Officer Beat Radio.
From coast to coast, cops are cracking down on seatbelt violations. Buckle up day and night or expect a ticket. It doesn't matter who you are or where you live, they'll be on the lookout. Cops write tickets to save lives. Click it for ticket.
Welcome back to this edition of the Private Officer Beat Radio. For a number of years, Private Officer has been building up our Spanish Latino membership. If you speak Spanish and you would like to assist with getting the word out, there are many Spanish security officers working in the U.S., many legal residents who, unfortunately, English is not their primary language. If you can help us to get the word out, to recruit, to help them to know that there is an association that is here for them, please contact us at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Today, we're going to be talking about trespassing. It's one of the most frequent interactions that security officers have with individuals. Over the years, the way that trespass has been treated has changed in some states. As far as I am aware, in all states, trespassing in itself is a misdemeanor. There may be several degrees of trespassing in some states, but it is a misdemeanor. But there are some cases where trespassing becomes a felony burglary. So I want to make a couple of points here during my time today talking about trespassing because this is an area where security officers sometimes, actually more times than not, to be honest, get themselves in trouble because they use too much force. They're not quite sure of what their state law, their state statute says. They misstate the law, and they escalate things, and this is one of those areas that we have continuously see poor judgment with interactions between security and the public. So let's talk about trespassing. First of all, you need 3 elements to be able to charge a person with trespassing. I understand that the laws do vary from state to state. Why we always tell people before you start enforcing the law, before you start trying to subject your authority on someone, before you start laying hands on someone to detain them or to make a citizen's arrest, it's important, very important, that you do know the proper terminology and the elements necessary for that crime to have been committed. So let's go over a couple of things. Security officers can definitely, in almost all states, detain someone just like any other citizen. Even in Georgia, where that law was repealed recently, they allowed security officers to continue to make citizens arrest. The general definition, and this is only a definition, I really advise you to go to go to the website. There are state statutes of every state are usually on the internet. Go there and print off the charges that you normally work with: theft, shoplifting, trespassing, concealed weapon, whatever it might be. Print them off. You can also get a really nifty book. Go online to Pocket Press, and they have a pocket-size book, and it has all the frequently known statutes and crimes committed in your state. And they're very inexpensive. I say about $10. PocketPress.com. I use them myself. My team uses them. So the generic terminology for trespassing, it is a criminal offense. You can have a trespass by a person. You can have a trespass by a vehicle. And you can have a trespass by a battery. Trespassing is when a person who has had knowledge of, been told not to, or otherwise knows not to be on the property, crosses that threshold and crosses into private property after being told not to, and that is a trespass. The person must have been told. This is one of those key elements if an arrest is going to be made. Now, the person can be told verbally. Person can be told by signage. That is, signs in places where a person enters the property can see this is private property, restricted, don't come in. Or the person has been notified not to come back onto the property in writing, either through a letter that has been sent to his legal address, by a trespass warning issued by law enforcement because you have detained him for whatever purpose, or a trespass warning that you yourself, your company, has issued to the person. If the person has not been notified, he is not trespassing. Person crosses the threshold by crossing a fence, breaking a lock, going through some other barrier, then that becomes a burglary, a felony charge. And in some states, if a person has been told not to come back on the property, or knows that he should not be on the property, and he does with the intent to commit a crime, he's charged with burglary. In some states, person who brings a tool with them, a shoplifting tool, into a retailer and is caught shoplifting, they are charged with burglary. Whether that be a bag that has tinfoil wrapped on the interior, or a cutting tool, or any other tool meant to assist in a theft, then that person's charged with burglary. Some state statutes, there are specific areas of the statute that also includes intent. If you can prove intent, the person trespassed with the intent to commit other crimes, whether that be assault, robbery, theft, burglary, whatever it might be, then that person can be charged with not trespassing, but with burglary. A number of years ago, I had a case where my partner and I was on foot patrol, and it was a large apartment complex under construction. We were working a private job at that location, and it was cold, very cold actually, and we just happened to go for coffee, and we were standing around, and we got done with the coffee, and we said, you know what, we need to do some exercise, we need to warm up, and let's walk around and check these buildings. We checked them earlier, but everything was secure. As we're walking through the courtyard of one of the areas, we heard glass breaking. And, of course, we immediately went to that area, weapons out. We determined that one of the apartment units, the glass of the back door had been broken out to. We made entry. We began doing a sweep of the building, and on the second floor found a person curled up and attempting to sleep. We placed him in the handcuffs. He was arrested for burglary and vandalism. But when we went to court, the prosecutor reduced that charge to trespassing because he said an element, here he did burglarize, but the element to prove it, if we were to take it to trial, would be that there was nothing inside of that unit to steal, and he made no attempt to steal the sink or plumbing or any of the wiring. He just wanted a place to sleep, so they reduced that charge to misdemeanor trespassing and gave him time served. You're going to find that there are, interpretations of the law by prosecutors and judges. That's why it's very important to know what the law says word for word and have the understanding of what that law is. One of the areas where security officers get involved in and put themselves in a bad place frequently in a trespass situation is assault. When you tell a person to leave the property and they don't, you have no authority, none whatsoever, to physically remove them from the property. We have talked about this in previous radio shows where in Florida, and I think there's one or two other states, the law allows you to physically help them out the door. What that means is to help escort them, not to kick their butt off the property, not to physically assault them, not to remove them by extreme force. Remember, the totality of the situation is what dictates what level of force that you can use, whether or not you can even use force. And remember, it must be reasonable and prudent at all times. Security officers are frequently arrested when they're dealing with small crimes, whether that be theft, shoplifting, or trespassing. They escalate instead of de-escalate. If the person doesn't want to leave, you have an option to call the police. You have an option to try to detain the person if that's within the scope of your authority or the client allows it. Remember, you got to have two things before you can detain somebody as a security officer. You got to have the law behind you, and you have to have permission from the client. The security company, the employer, might want you to detain someone, but if the client does not want you to be hands-on, then you can't be hands-on unless you're defending yourself. More importantly, we have to understand the level of force. What is reasonable? What is reasonable to the totality of the supposed crime at hand? If that person hasn't struck us, if they're not armed, if they're not trying to assault us, and we physically go hands-on and start pushing that guy around, and we're not going to detain him, or we can't detain him, or we can't arrest him, then at that point we are committing an arrest or an assault. And we have to kind of determine which one is it going to be. Are we assaulting them, or is it going to be your story in the report is that you're trying to detain them even though you may not have the authority or permission to do so. Trespassing by verbal notification, trespassing by written notification, either by law enforcement or a written trespass. I have a beautiful trespass book, looks like a ticket book that I had made up many years ago for use in housing projects and gated communities, and I still have them today. They work beautifully. There are 3 copies, NCR paper, which means you don't need any carbon copy paper. Everything is transformed across 3 pages, and it works perfect. They sign off on it. You take their picture. You get their ID. You put it in your database, and if they come back on, you pull that information up, and at that point, you detain them, arrest them, depending on your authority and permission. Remember that this isn't the crime of the century. It is an important crime because, as you know, people who trespass often are the troublemakers. When you trespass somebody from the property and you find them back on 3 or 4 weeks later, 9 times out of 10, they're doing something. They're loitering, they're drinking alcohol, they're smoking dope, they're committing some other type of crime. So it is important to get people that should not be on the property off the property and to eliminate those elements of crime. But we have to do it legally, and we have to do it within the law and by the client's own request that they want you to, or they tell you not to. Trespassing is also one of those crimes where if you have authority, like in Virginia, Maryland, D.C., Ohio, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and other states, where if you have the authority as a special police officer or a private police officer, you can, you don't have to take them into full custodial custody. You can give them a citation, which is a very easy way to make that arrest, give them that citation, and get them off the property. Then they go to court, and maybe they don't come back again, or maybe they do. Trespassing. Know the statute. Know the law of the land. Know what it is that your client wants and what your company is willing to allow you to do. When we're dealing with trespassing, believe it or not, there's a lot of liability because now you have a crime that has been committed. Now you have a person who may or may not be too happy to leave that property. Now you have a situation where you have to determine if you're going to lay hands on someone to detain or arrest them and the level of force that you're willing to use. A lot of apartment complexes this time of year have swimming pools, and there's a lot of interaction with trespassing at those during the winter on gated communities, housing complexes, apartments. We have a lot of trespassing that goes on at the clubhouses and throughout the property, people having parties and so forth, socializing. It's always good that if you're going to have interactions with the public on these type of properties, that you are at least a 2-man armed team. If someone pulls out a knife, a gun, or another weapon, you have to have the means to defend yourself. My philosophy is, if you're enforcing the rules, the laws, and you're not armed, you should not be enforcing them. It's just like many light rail systems use unarmed security officers to enforce the ridership tolls and so forth, the tickets, to be an inspector, to inspect those tickets to see if they have them, if they're legit, if they're old, and then write a citation. If you're going to enforce those type of rules and laws unarmed, you're only asking for trouble. We see it frequently on the light rail. We see it frequently by private patrols at apartments, gated communities, hotels, and various other similar locations. Trespassing is a very vital aspect of what security personnel do. Preventing trespassing and detecting trespassing and enforcing trespassing. But we have to be trained a little bit more in de-escalation. We have to be trained a little bit more in how to enforce the rules. Sometimes we have to do it by the spirit of the law. And that really means that we have to be lenient at times. We have to be understanding, not so gung-ho. And sometimes we have to be by the letter of the law. That means everybody is treated the same way. If it's our job to arrest everyone who trespasses, then that's what we do, by the letter of the law. I hope that this reminder has, been helpful to you. I hope that you'll remember trespassing is really a sticky situation these days. Many people believe that, if you call them out, especially those who may be, brown or black skin, that you are picking on them, that you are racially profiling them. And that may or may not be the case. It might be. But you should not do that. Be sure that you treat everyone equally, enforce the rules and the laws, across the board. Make sure that you don't overstep your authority when dealing with a trespasser or using any level of force. That's going to do it for this edition of the Private Officer Beat Radio, and I hope that for the rest of the week you'll be blessed, you'll be safe, and we'll see you right back here on the radio.